These are the examples for Algebra 2A, Credit 3, Lesson 6.2. Lesson 6.2, we're going to be multiplying polynomials. Let's take a look at an example for number 1. So when you have a term that's next to parentheses, that indicates multiplication. And what we have to do with this negative 7x to the third that's outside the parentheses is to multiply it or distribute it to all three terms inside the parentheses, the 4x squared, the minus 3x, and the positive 9. So let's go ahead and do that. Negative 7x to the third times 4x squared, negative 7x to the third times negative 3x, and negative 7x to the third times positive 9. And now all we have to do is simplify each one of these multiplications, and we have our answer. So we're going to multiply coefficients and add the exponents. So negative 7 times 4 is negative 28, and then 3 plus 2 is 5 on the exponents. Now in our next one, we don't have an exponent written here, but we know we can always write in 1. Negative 7 times negative 3 is positive 21. And then on the exponents, 3 plus 1 is 4. Finally, we have we have our last term. We're just multiplying by a constant term. Negative 7 times 9 is negative 63. And then we have the x to the third. And so that's our answer. Negative 28x to the fifth plus 21x to the fourth minus 63x to the third. All right, let's take a look at an example for problem number 2. And we're going to erase problem number 1 here just so we have some space here. So again, you can rewind and pause to go back to that if you need to. All right, so on number 2, we have, instead of a single term, we have two terms, which we call a binomial, being multiplied by these three terms, which we call a trinomial. So what we have to do is both the 4x and the negative 3 need to be multiplied to all three terms here because a parentheses next to a parentheses indicates multiplication. So we have 4x being multiplied to everything here. So 4x times 5x squared plus 2x minus 4. And then the negative 3 times everything here, 5x squared plus 2x minus 4. And now we're going to have just a little bit more multiplication, very similar, though, that we did in the last problem. All right, so we have 4x times 5x squared, and then 4x times 2x, and then finally 4x times negative 4. All right, so now we're going to multiply the negative 3 to everything as well. So negative 3 times 5x squared, and then negative 3 times 2x, and then finally negative 3 times negative 4. And now we're going to multiply each of these. Now it looks like a lot, but it goes pretty fast. So let's go ahead and do that. In our first term here, now remember, where we don't have an exponent, we can write in a 1. So let's go ahead and do that, put in our 1s. 4 times 5 is 20. 1 plus 2 is 3. So remember, multiply the coefficients, add the exponents. Here we have 4 times 2 is 8. And then 1 plus 1 on the exponents gives us 2. Next, we have 4 times negative 4 is negative 16x. Next, we have negative 3 times 5 is negative 15x to the second. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6, and then x. And then finally, a negative times a negative is a positive, and then 3 times 4 gives us 12. Now we need to, last thing we have to do is to group our like terms and to simplify that. So now, the first term, x to the third, 20x to the third, there is no other x to the third. There are other x's, but none that are raised to the third power. So that we're just going to be bringing down. So we know that'll be part of our answer. Next, we have x to the second. So we have 8x to the second. We'll cross these out as we go. And then plus our negative 15x to the second power. All right, so that takes care of our x to the second powers. And then next we have negative 16x plus our other x term, negative 6x. And then finally, we have our constant term. We only have, that is a 12, that's 12, and that's our only constant term. So we're going to bring that down, similar to what we did on the first term, the 20x to the third. All right, so last step is to combine our like terms, and we'll be bringing down the terms that do not have a like term, the x to the third and the constant term. So with the x squareds, the signs are different. 15 minus 8 is 7. The larger number, the 15, is negative, so negative 7, and then x to the second power. With our x terms, the signs are the same, so we're going to add 16 and 6. We get 22. And then both terms are negative, so our answer is negative. Finally, the 12, our constant term, is our only constant term, so we just bring that down. And so our final answer is 20x to the third. Let's go ahead and box that so we can focus on that. 20x to the third minus 7x squared minus 22x plus 12. All right, so that's our example for number 2. Let's take a look at an example for number 3, which is similar, but we have several steps here. So let's take a look at, again, one more example here. All right, so for our example for number 3, we'll come over here to give us some more space. We have 6x plus 7, and then times 8x squared minus x plus 4. So once again, just like for problem number 2, we have a binomial times a trinomial. So we need to multiply both of these terms, the 6x and the 7, to this entire trinomial. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have 6x times, and again, the whole trinomial, 8x squared minus x plus 4, and then the 7 times the 8x squared, this whole thing here, minus the x plus the 4. All right, so now let's go ahead and distribute. Remember, wherever we don't have an exponent, we're going to write in a 1. Also, wherever we don't have a coefficient, here and here, we can also write in 1s there. So let's go ahead and start. 6x times 8x squared, and then 6x, oops, we don't need the parentheses there, although we could do that, times negative 1x to the first, so forget the 1 there, and then finally 6x times 4. And now we're going to distribute the 7. So we have 7 times 8x squared, and then 7 times negative 1x to the first, and then finally 7 times 4. All right, let's go ahead and simplify. 6 times 8 is 48, and then 1 plus 2 is 3, so we have 48x to the third power. Next, we have 6 times negative 1, which is negative 6, and then adding the exponents, 1 plus 1 is 2. Next, 6 times 4 is 24, and we're multiplying by a constant here, so all we have to do is bring down the x. Next, we have 7 times 8 is 56, x squared. Next, 7 times 1 is negative 7x. And again, once we've done the multiplying, we really don't need the 1s anymore, so we don't really need to write the exponent of 1. And finally, 7 times 4 here is 28. All right, so now time to group and combine our like terms. First of all, the x to the third. Again, that's our only x to the third term, so we're just going to bring that down. Or we can cross it out if we want to remind us that we've already dealt with that. Next, we have our x squareds. We have negative 6x squared, so plus a negative 6x squared plus 56x squared. So that takes care of our x squareds. Next, our x's, we have 24x plus a negative 7x. And then finally, our constant term, there's only one of them, so just like with the 48x to the third, we're just going to bring that down. And now our last step is to combine like terms, and we have our answer. So the terms that we can't, or there's nothing to combine, we just bring that down again one last time. Here, the signs are different, so we subtract. 56 minus 6 is 50, x squared. The larger number is positive, so positive 50x squared. Next, we have our x terms. The signs, again, are different, so we subtract. 24 minus 7 is 17. Let's write it over here maybe a little bit. And so 17x, the larger number, though, is positive, so positive 17x. We'll need all those lines. There we go. And then our constant term, again, that was our only constant term, so we just bring that down and we are done. So our final answer, 48x to the third plus 50x squared plus 17x plus 28. All right, so a few steps there, more than a few, I suppose. But again, pause, rewind the video, and again, study, meaning going over the steps or pausing it as we went through the steps to make sure you understand what was done and why it was done. And then you're going to do great on these problems. All right, so that's it for the examples for lesson 6.2. And again, good luck with the work. And until we'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and God bless.